Oh, yeah.
We're bringing that right now, and we're on you know, the Williams, believe it or not, showed up at 5:08. And there were two meetings going on at the same time in this room. So imagine what happened. Yeah.
Our audio is live.
All right. So welcome everybody to, what did we say, the third idea talk of the fall 2018 term. We've got wonderful attendance. Thank you, Telos World Constellation students for coming up the hill from Winslow. Tonight is actually it's a semantics talk. It's Alex New talking about his this extension, this semantics extension to his risk browser, which we'll go into great detail on. It's very cool. It's been making a lot of rapid progress. A couple logistical things. We are you're welcome to get up and get water, that sort of thing. We are streaming this live and recording it for posterity. So feel free to ask questions. Right?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Just stop me like whenever you want.
That's right. Except if you discover syntax problems with its JSON, you have to be quiet about that. I think that's about it. Cool. So take it away, Alex. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. So the title of this talk is a cartridge-driven framework for semantic-powered health risk analyses, which is kind of a mouthful, so we're going to try to unpack that. So the motivation for what I'm going to be talking about today is, so we're supposing we have some sort of data literate physician, and they want to perform risk analyses on some variety of risk factors in chronic diseases, but they want to use the same visualizations and association. So this sort of thing uses the same sets of analytic methods and same types of visualizations. So we want to have a scalable system that can be extended to a variety of different questions. And we want to be able to have a system be accessible from another use case. They might design new chronic solutions on the fly, so we have this sort of sensibility. So the big take home is like sort of rapid prototyping studies, each of them which might normally take a lot of work individually, but we're trying to abstract common elements that with a single tool you can look at a wide variety of different questions. And so our solution is this idea of a cartridge. So you can think of a cartridge as being an analysis component, and then you slot your sets of cartridges into a framework, and that defines your study. So if you know about RDFs, you can think of a cartridge as maybe being like a suggested subset of RDFs, of an RDF graph that corresponds to some like useful preset options. So what do we have here? What I'm going to talk about? I have this whole cartridge framework, and so the advantages of cartridge framework are that it's a given cartridge is an easily modifiable chunk of a larger analysis, and then if you do your cartridges correctly, you can automatically incorporate necessary aspects of the knowledge. That way, You don't need to be an expert in, say, breast cancer. You just load the breast cancer cartridge, and that handles some of the more subtle functions for you. And then when you use a cartridge, you have a linkable representation format for results. So you want to export your results or publish them in some useful way, and a useful way of doing that is via linked data. So when you have a cartridge, you can make that linked, which is nice. And so then I've taken this framework and I've implemented it in our risk analyzer. So if you were at my idea talk last spring, we presented an initial version of the risk analyzer. So this one, we reworked how it works and let it take advantage of this cartridge framework, which is nice. And then after that, I'm going to sketch out an example of a precision health risk analysis that's end-to-end, in the sense that you're going to be starting with the data that's initial knowledge, acquiring it into tabular form, doing analysis, and then writing the results back to this analysis. So this is you could think of like a dynamic health analysis that represents the results of a lot of different models. And this is a sketched out example of that. And it's based on like an actual research paper. So it's not like a toy or anything. So throughout, I'm making a set of assumptions. I'm going to try to list them here. So we have some sort of health records. And these health records will include demographic variables. So records being a set of rows, each row corresponding to something. And then this row has this person's attributes. So the records will include things like their demographic variables. So what is their ethnicity? How old are they? Things like that. And then we also have these risk factors. So risk factor is a kind of ambiguous term. So what you can think of a risk factor is it's something that you think might be associated with a chronic disease. So maybe you think that the amount of some pesticide in your blood correlates with whether or not you have hypertension, so then that pesticide is a risk factor. You can also be more general and say, like, how many hours of TV you watch, and then that could also be a potential risk factor. And so then we also have these chronic health condition variables. So an example might be uncontrolled diabetes. You have like HbA1c that's very high, or you may be hypertension, or you have cancer, that sort of thing. And we are working with the idea of metadata that the variables in this set of records to establish concepts. So maybe you don't really know what some random pesticide is, but you can link it to heavy, and then they'll give you more information, and that's authoritative. So the example set that we're working with is called NHANES, National Health and Examination Survey, Nutrition Examination Survey. It's a big US administered survey, has a lot of different aspects and complicated stuff, but we can mostly just treat it as something that has these aspects for now. And so then we're also assuming that we have some health risk factor ontology. This doesn't exist yet, but we're hard at work on getting it to exist. And so what the health risk factor ontology will do is it'll describe different analysis concepts, as well as workflow axioms and background domain axioms. So it's a set of chunks that tell you how to do an analysis in some given way. And so one possibility is that these health records might only exist in the tabular form, or they might have a graphical representation. So we don't necessarily require a graphical formulation, but it has certain advantages and disadvantages. And so then throughout, I'm going to be talking about this risk modeling. Just to briefly say what that means. It's a very common analytic framework that people like PubMed, and then NHANES risk. There's going to be hundreds of different papers that do essentially the same thing with different variables. So it's a very common workflow. And so when you do risk modeling, you choose a single response variable. So this is your chronic health condition, like hypertension, or you can do something continuous, like your systolic blood pressure. And so then you choose a set of control variables. So these are things that domain knowledge tells you are associated with the response variable already. So if you're looking for the association between hypertension and some pesticide, well, you already know that ethnicity has an association with hypertension, so you want to control out the effect of ethnicity before you move on. And then you choose a single risk factor, so it could be like a concentration of cadmium in your blood. And this single risk factor is how it's very commonly done. It's kind of a limitation because you're sort of assuming different risk factors have independent effects, but we want to work with this simple thing to start out with, and then we can do more complicated stuff later. And so then we have a cohort. So a cohort, you can think of it as either a set of inclusion and exclusion criteria. So you have a large data set, but then you want to filter it down to the set of records you care about. So that set of records you care about is the cohort. So something like that could be women who are over 40 and don't have breast cancer, but there's a lot of different cohorts. So you might say, well, like, how do we choose what cohort it is? How do we choose what our risk factors are? And that's kind of an open question. It's the sort of thing where, like, there's enough possible cohorts that you can actually enumerate all of them, have them be easily accessible. So it's more, if you imagine our data literate physician, like maybe a woman who's over 40 is worried she has breast cancer and walks into her office. So he's like, how, like, what sort of risk factors should I be worried about? And so then this doctor could define a response like that using that cohort. And so then you filter for the appropriate subjects, and then you learn a generalized linear model using the sets of variables we talked about. So a generalized linear model, for our purposes, is like linear regression or logistic regression. And so then out of that generalized linear model extracts some specific log odds ratios and p-values, etc. So it's like statistical outputs, and you collect them over all of your different risk factors. And so the enhancer does this workflow. So that's why we're working. Are there any questions on this, like, basic information? Just does this all make sense to people? Cool. So now let's introduce this idea of cartridge. So, like we said, a cartridge is a minimal necessary component of an analysis, and we categorize these cartridges in different ways. So we're saying, okay, you have a response error cartridge. And so this a response variable cartridge will say, how do you diagnose someone with hypertension? So what conditions do you need to satisfy hypertension? And then it'll say, okay, how do you model hypertension? And then it'll say what things you need to control for when you're looking to use risk factors for hypertension. And then you have a study cohort cartridge. So this is, again, just like the set of rules that tell you whether or not a person is included in your study. So like, again, the whole example of like women over 40 who don't have breast cancer, that's informal example of a study cohort cartridge. And so you have a risk factor cartridge, and so these are categories of semantically similar potential risk factors. So this is partially an artifact of MHANES, partially more general idea. So in MHANES you have categories like insecticides, and this is a meaningful semantic category. So things that are two different pesticides will have some similarities, and so we group them together, and so we include them in the same risk factor cartridge. And then you have these workflow cartridges, and this is kind of like a none of the above catch-all. So sometimes, for example, you'll want to standardize all of your study variables. It comes about being included in a workflow cartridge. Then you need to use things like a threshold for significance, and that would be your cartridge as well. And then, so once you've done that and you've measured all your models and you've gotten the results, you write them to a results cartridge. And so this tells you, like, what did we learn and what did we need to use to learn these things. So doing some examples. So here we have two different response variable cartridges. One of them, the first one, is for uncontrolled diabetes, and then the other is just using a linear regression model for systolic blood pressure. So here we have first this data analytics knowledge for hypertension. Don't, so it's a binary variable, and you would model with logistic regression. You have this health domain knowledge. So what do we think we need to control for? And why do we want to control for that? And then we have how do you actually diagnose them with uncontrolled diabetes? And so this is saying, so you have this a measurement called glycohemoglobin. If that's 7.5, then this person has uncontrolled diabetes. And so this is a little bit more complicated than it might be, because we're trying to make a cartridge that's both human readable and machine readable. And the solution right now is just to have both. And so a challenge would be making sure that these information synchronized, so that if you change one, you need to change the other. At this point, this is just something that I have to do. Using model type of regression, there's nothing per is that what you spend, or is there something? So because uncontrolled diabetes, you would monitor. So you could view that as a simple analysis. Well, so because that's primary depend on yeah, so if you look back to your solid response variable, and so then you would want to well, it's the fact that you're controlling for the other things. You're doing a full linear model, and so this isn't like we're not doing like concentrated modeling. We're just keeping like the set of observations I have. Look for the differences between that. That makes sense.
I think so. I mean, the reason why I asked is because there's a lot of different.
Yeah. So I guess we're kind of obfuscating a lot of complicated conjecture statistics. We're just saying for like our purposes, we really only do linear models, and that means we're not explicitly talking about Asper tests or like Fisher tests or whatever. So you can imagine if we had this whole formal health analytics ontology, that would maybe have a little more generality. And so we're working on this.
Yeah, one thing that so as someone who's only dealing with statistics, a statistics cartridge that basically helps you decide what model type in there. Would be
yeah. So I guess like it's what would be. So one way you could think about this is just having data type binary and then the risk analyzer infers model type. So then like there was the whole scala-based analytics ontology that was able to do like model selection inference. So that's like some of those you think about.
How do they do
it's essentially this a little bit more complicated. So they just like ask their supposition, pose that as data, what model should I use, or what is that? Yes. So, yes. So I think what they said they did is like you try to insert that metadata and then you apply the actions that tell you on
the type of data and the question.
What's it?
So you were saying that basically human readable and readable.
Yeah. It's more the cartridge means human readable and more than computer readable. So this expression LBXGH greater than equal to 7.5. That's the human readable part, and then like the cond one is how the risk analyzer actually works the cartridge.
Is there one thing for each one, and then
Yeah. So that would it was more of a question of representation, and so for just this purposes, we were thinking just have something that has both of them. But there is like there is indeed a one-one mapping. So like if you were imagining this actually being an analysis, then it might take this teaching that definition then generate the unit one. So it's just like a parsing thing. Yeah. Yeah, so there can be a lot of possible confounders, and so it's an open question because it doesn't really have a hard and fast answer. So like we have this thing that says we did a risk analysis using and control disease. So we're just using that because like public papers did that, we're going to do it. So there's definitely like more subtle ways of doing that. What if papers really control for? How do you like update the content over time? But we're doing a kind of simple version for now. Cool. And so then we also have this like at the end of the cartridge, it's like an analysis question. That's just telling you like what is the answer. So in this case, we're saying are higher amounts of this factor significantly associated with the presence of uncontrolled data. And so you can think of this as a kind of stupid explainable AI where like you have a human written explanation that will just pop out when necessary. But it helps people who aren't statisticians like kind of see what this analysis is trying to do. Okay. And so then we can have more types of cartridges. So here on the top we have the example of the risk factor cartridge. And so this is describing the category of risk factors that are called polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So that's like a chemical term. If you talk to a chemist, they'll know what that means. So you could link the term polyaromatic hydrocarbon to chemical ontology. And so then we also have more help domain knowledge. So here we have this additional confounder. And so what that's saying is that in NHANES, polyaromatic hydrocarbons are measured in urine, and people have sort of realized that when you're looking at various risk factors, you also need to control for this URFCCR, which is when the risk analyzer is doing its full model, it'll grab the confounders we think we need and look for other ones that might be like risk factor specific. And so then we also have this transformation. So this is a combination of health knowledge graph. So from like a health perspective, we know that the distribution of polyaromatic hydrocarbons in your blood will tend to be right skewed, and that will interfere poorly with these simple modeling techniques we have. So a common analytics solution is to apply a lot of more. So we're like combining this analytics knowledge and this health domain knowledge. Okay, and so then here we have an example of a cohort cartridge. So this is just describing a set of patients we might do analyses over. And so here we're just saying they're young adults or old adults. They're this range of BMIs, and then they're not allowed to have cancer. So this is, again, kind of hard-coded. So like it requires that the risk analyzer know what young adult means. You can answer that somewhere. So you can imagine this changing this, and so if you could also add in something like a gender restriction or what's up? Yeah. Also like you could definitely do that. So you could, I don't think I can do that at the moment, but like it's essentially just the same thing that you would be. It's like the code you use for giving a diagnosis, and so it's just making the cohort cartridge. Sure.
So if you had a range instead of just greater, so then you want to have inside, right-hand side per se.
Yeah.
And just a single relation. So
well, you could take the range and turn it into two dimensions, right? So greater than A and less than B. But I'm not necessarily trying to like wed this format. It's just something that was fairly useful for now, and other people probably thought about other ones that have become solutions. Okay, and so here, and at the end we have this example of like a reference to cartridges, just like what else needs to be satisfied. So here we're saying we do want to scale our factors, and we're using a specific p-value threshold for significance that's commonly used. We're saying if we're looking at like a binary variable, we want our study cohort to have at least 10 people with a condition to be like counted, because so like if you're looking at a study cohort that only has one person with hypertension, the results are going to be very noisy. Filter that out, and then we're saying we're just working in the general passive models, so we're not implicitly something more complicated like cost analysis or something like that. And then we are working with you can this is there's a lot of possible options like the user preference cartridge could have because it's just whatever else needs to be specified.
Alex, sorry if you covered this already, but what's the difference between a user preference cartridge and the health domain knowledge? Like, you know, there you have two arrows, right? So
yeah.
And cancer status. So, you know, why is one user?
Okay, yeah. So it's what people have realized in health research is that there's generally a meaningful difference in distribution between cancer and donor cancer. So if you're looking for a study, if you're doing a study that you're hoping to generalize the population, it's common to filter out people who do have cancer because they're almost like a subpopulation that you would want to model. And then here, it's more so if we imagine like a physician who they have a person in their office and say like, what do I need to be worried about? Then you could imagine the physician filtering down the characteristics of the population that match this particular person. And so now this is a bit more complicated, but this is just saying, okay, once we've done all your modeling and you're writing it in a JSON format, like what does it look like? So first we have these three links that are used for the analysis. So this is primitive link idea where we're saying, okay, if you want to replicate these results, you need to use these specific cartridges. And they're also telling you the data for them. So if you find a significant association between some pesticide and hypertension only in people over 40, then when you're referring to that result, you need to have the context of what your study cohort was. So if you refer to that, then you also just want to know like how exactly you define hypertension or whatever. And so then we have the set of results. These look kind of complicated, not statistics person. So we have it's like the big ones are something like a standard error, a standard regression coefficient, a standard error, and a p-value. These are ways that we decide whether an association exists, which is a very simplified statement, but it's close enough to true. And we have also this n-cos and n-obs and stuff that's just saying for the particular cohort, how big is it and how many people have hypertension. And so this is just, if you're looking at the results, you want to say, okay, was this study only based on like 100 people or 100,000? So that's useful information to have. And then we links like there's a code that NHANES uses, URXUMA, but that means something which is urinary monomethylchronic acid. And then we know that this particular acid is a member of the category of so that's the way that we back this established. So are there any other questions about like the result format for cartridges or anything like that? Yeah. So both of these were pretty bad results, but so like if the p-value were lower, then yeah. So you could, on a simple level, like do something like a null model or a saturated model and get the risk factor between them. The challenge for our specific case is because we're working with survey data, we need to take that into account. And it's like that does all these complicated things with standard errors. And as far as I know, no one's really managed to extend all that complexity to like a fully basic case. But if you were working with something like a derived data, then it would definitely make sense to do like basing and stuff, and then you could like do things like hierarchy. Okay. So now I'm just going to do a quick demo of how this works. And so if you were here in the spring, or if you weren't here, this is what it used to look like. And so what you want to really be paying attention to is the left side, which is essentially like a series of drop-down menus. So that's how we use constructor analyses. But now we've replaced these menus with the cartridge interface. So this is just like this is an R-Shinia, and how it works is you literally just choose like what cartridges you want. So here we have this set of possible cartridges, and first we're saying what's the response variable, what does it look like, and so we've chosen hypertension, and then we're saying, okay, like what set of people do we want to work with, and for the moment we're just saying people who don't have cancer. Then we've chosen a set of different risk factor cartridges. So like these are 4 that I have made. And so we're using arsenics, dioxins, polyaromatics, and urinary metals. So we're just uploading those. And then our standard parameters. And so then when you save it, you can just give it a name. And so we're doing the analysis. So here we just have this summary table for the analysis. So we were looking at hypertension, which is, and so we're saying what risk factors are associated with the presence of hypertension. We're using a logistic regression model. We're controlling for these 4 variables. We're using these categories of risk factors, and this entails looking at 55 different risk factors. And so
then we have a table
that
that summarizes our results. If you remember what our results cartridge looked like,
this is
basically just that results cartridge in a table format. So this is fairly straightforward, and so then you can take your results and you can visualize them.
So here
we're just looking at the distribution of p-values, which is a common technique. And so points, bars above this line are ones we think are significant at our chosen threshold. And then we can look at the actual effects, which are these regression coefficients. And so here, we automatically color points by the categories, so we can see like there's a lot of these dioxins that have a positive association between hypertension and them. And then there's also a lot of these phthalates. So this is just a very standard way of presenting the results of a large-scale analysis. There's a lot of subtle things you could do, but this lets you look at like the result of 55 different models and try to just like look at them collectively, which is nice. And so something else we can do is we can then take existing results and compare them. So like load the JSONs back into this analyzer. And so here, that's what we can do with this tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, given all of these risk factors we have, imagine we divided our study population into two categories, either young or old. Are these people's risk factors different in any way? And so I have these two results cartridges. I'm going to load them in. And so now we're seeing that, so the red bars are ones that are risk factors for old people, and then the blue bars are for younger people. And so what's kind of interesting is that we have these disjoint risk factors. And so like for whatever reason in the data, we have this association in levels, and blood pressure only the elderly people, and then we have positive associations for these phthalates. So this is, you have the results So are there questions about what I'm talking about? Oh yeah. It just so the green ones are the risk factors that are dioxins, furans, and coplanar PCDs, and in NHANES it just turns out that there's a lot of those. So like that category is larger than the category of phthalates. No, we're using all the variables we have access to, and that just happens to be a lot of dioxins.
Could you show, so the results, wasn't could you show the one that you showed or
yeah.
Just like, well, there's a couple of things in this result that I thought was cool. One is you've got the additional analysis.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got the array of the cartridges showing. So I think it's just really cool to think of this, imagine this as a graph written.
Okay. And so then what you can also do is you can approach this, you can like use this comparison for a different class of questions. So you can say, given like a specific risk factor, what are the diseases most associated with it? And then you can do this comparison thing. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, using 3 different response variables of hypertension, just the general presence of cancer, and then type 2 diabetes. Find like look at all of our risk factors and find the associations for all of them, and then say, okay, for a given chronic health disease, like how does the association strength vary between risk factors? So this is what we have here, and so what you'll notice is that of the risk factors we have access to, there tend to be much stronger associations between hypertension and these risk factors than either the presence of cancer or type 2 diabetes. But we do have one, so for URX UPT, which is urinary platinum, there's a fairly strong association with cancer. And then all of our diabetes associations are much
And so this is
this is the sort of thing that can drive further analysis questions and let you have these high-level summaries of health. Are there? This was all I was going to do for the demo. Are there? Okay. So
for the, I guess, rare case, you have a negative regression coefficient. Does that mean that a lack of that metal, for example, is associated?
Yeah. Yes. And so that's like negative regression coefficient might be more common if some of our risk factors were like what sorts of things you eat, where you can imagine these like sort of beneficial relationships going on. But like another possibility is just that there's some sort of reverse causality going on, where so like maybe once you realize that you have hypertension, you start taking actions, and those actions result in you having a lower concentration of this like exposure in your urine. Yeah.
So it looks like the system's sort of a good way to test a lot of different hypotheses that you might have. One that's making reproducible.
Yeah.
Is there a good way how you can tap out the negative result? I keep thinking of like the jelly baby.
Yeah.
I think like, this would definitely make it easy to do that. So are you like thinking of any ways of countering that or keeping track of the things?
Well, so we do take that into account. So, like if you look at these two sets of
results, these are both negative results. Because in both cases we failed to find a significant association, but we're still storing them. So if you imagine that we have this like central knowledge graph of health finding results, you could then write these back to that knowledge graph. So we looked for associations that we didn't find. Does that make sense?
But I guess a really good question is like, this result in the original cartridge that is being not the ideal, right? So do you keep track of like, what changes you make to the cartridge in order to get a more, relevant results? Starting from a negative result?
So I guess you can store a lot of different results in cartridges, and so so there's not, I guess as of now, we don't have like a tracking of an experiment we're finding.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
So, Alex, right now, user can basically the analysis he wants to do.
Yeah.
Does this make any sense to think in terms of another layer on top of this where you have a very large range and a very experimental, where you're just testing a whole range of possibilities out there and then collect all the results of it?
Yeah, so you could do that. You do have like a very combinatorial search space. So like even for names, which is not extremely granular, you have like 5 different ethnicities and arbitrary ways of categorizing each of different genders. And then like a variety of other additions. But if you want, you can just have this just like go for a long list of like thousands of different studies and so on. Yeah. Yeah, so like if you're doing that in that sort of sense, you want to be more careful about your false discovery rate correction. So what we do like right now, so like if you your single study that you've constructed, then you adjust those p-values, and those are the p-values that are reported. But if you're doing it like you're saying, then you want to not do the adjustment until you have every possible study you've been doing, because of how sort of weird and intuitive ways.
You're still constrained by the confounder selection.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of the limiting factor, isn't it?
The other thing is that one motivation for this was the idea that we would actually start with the most promising, likely factors, so that you can keep your search very small and not use to make knowledge to focus on things that are promising.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess another way of looking at this would be So these are all association results, but when you find the best association results, you then that can motivate causality-based analysis of like controlled experiments as well. Okay. So just a summary of this portion, we have this idea of like a minimal necessary analysis component, and then we specify the various things you need to do if you're making an analysis, and they're essentially subsets of an graph. And so then we have this where everything's currently JSON, but an avenue for improvement we've discussed is switching to a JSON LD, so like a linked data representation. And so that's like what you definitely want to do for the results, where you want to link back to the cartridge that we're using, but there's general discussion over to what extent linkness is necessary. So now we're going to try to take a step back and imagine a larger scale analysis. So this end-to-end analysis. So we've only talked about cartridges that can be applied to this simple linear model. And if you're doing linear modeling, you're assuming that your entire population has the same risk profile in expectation. So that's probably not the case for a lot of interesting questions. And so if you wanted to make this better, you would let risk profiles vary within the population. But because of this whole combinatorial search space that we've talked about, you really can't enumerate every possible cohort and test that association. So what you want to do is you want to let the data tell you what your cohort should be. And so one solution we have this is this idea of the supervised Cadre model, which is a machine learning technique that my advisor and I have been working on. And so at a non-technical level, a supervised Cadre model it's a class of machine learning models that will automatically discover subpopulations and then also learn their risk profiles. And so it does this, it tells you what you think your cohort wants to be, and then what cohorts associations are. And so this then increases the challenges of storage, because if you're working with a simple linear model, and you just need the results of those, so those association strengths and then the cohort you started out with. But when you're doing a Cadre model, you need to then find a way to summarize the different subpopulation that was discovered as well as their profiles. And so using a terminology we've like talked about, this is essentially you're making a very large set of table ones, where each table one describes a specific subpopulation or so like a cohort table. So how, what does this maybe look like? So we're talking about this knowledge graph. So this knowledge graph has both data and metadata. So the data are measurements of different variables. Like, so in this case, we have two people, the ages, BMI, ethnicities, blood pressures, and then the metadata initially might only link what might only like link what the variables are to establish concepts and that sort of thing. And we can get this using the whole semantic data dictionary approach by Severe. And so then when we have the data in this big knowledge graph, we need to make it into a tabular form to actually do analysis on it. And so the tool for this is Sparkle, or a tool for this is Sparkle. So we can generate these very messy Sparkle queries that will go through the knowledge graph and extract the records you need.
Are you saying it's messy?
It's just looks interesting.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at all those predicates. Subject, object.
And so then, once you have your data in a table, you can do some machine learning on it. So in this simple example, we're just going to think of training a single supervised Cadre model on the data, and our goal is to predict systolic blood pressure using these three variables, age, BMI, ethnicity, and then we're going to call this model. So as you're doing it, when the training process is finished, your SCM partitions your observations into n populations, and like I said, each subpopulation has its own linear risk model. So we need to take that into account, and we want to store these conclusions for future risks. And so the actual sign of the subpopulations is done probabilistically. So you're essentially learning a specific polynomial, but then which is useful. So it lets you be a little bit more clear what a subpopulation might look like, which is nice. And so then what this is leading to is what I'm calling derived attributes. So these are new variables that exist because of the model. And so these derived attributes can be useful in and of themselves. Like we want to know how good is the model at predicting someone's systolic blood pressure. But they can also drive further analysis and say, okay, of the people that did really poorly, my prediction for true systolic blood pressure was reduced by like 50. What do they look like? Anything special characteristics that suggest not on our model. So we have these derived attributes, and so the SEM will give us two different types of derived attributes. There's this cadre memberships, which is a number between 1 and m, and that just tells you what cadre a given observation belongs to. And then we have this actually the predictions and that sort of thing. And so we think of then, so the derived attributes of new data, and then the summaries of the subpopulations are metadata. And so we want to think of a way of mechanically describing them and working with that. So if we were doing this in our toy example, we would now add 2 attributes to our knowledge graph for each person. So now they have this cadre, is like what subpopulation they belong to, and then they have their predicted systolic blood pressure. And in both cases, we want to link these new attributes to where they came from, because they came from our supervised cadre model. And so then we also want to store the results in our knowledge graph on a metadata level. So we've defined this supervised cadre model object, which has a variety of attributes. And so what these are basically the model's hyperparameters. So you have things like regularization strengths, the number of cadres you've chosen to start with, the seed. So everything that a code that a script would need to replicate the model, you store in the object here. And then it has the attributes that are the cadres themselves. And so we can look at a cadre. And so when you're trying to understand a subpopulation, you can either work directly with the data that belong to that subpopulation, or you can use some sort of compact representation, which are these summaries. So in this hypothetical example, our cadres have a size and then the people in them, and then you can look at like the average age of people in them, and conclusions of ages, and that sort of thing. So we have 3 goals here. Like what exactly we're trying to do. We want to have this high level of information about the derived concepts that link directly to the data and the model. And we'll be able to like replicate our model construction with hyperparameters and that sort of thing. And then what you can think about this is, so supposing we got a new wave of Atkins data from the most recent year, then that would invalidate some findings, not others. So if you leave so that this under a certain version of the data, you know that if the data changed, you would want to review the model. And so then there is an important distinction here. So when we talk about the summary representation of the cadre, we're just looking at the people in it and calculating some summary statistics. This is not necessarily how the model works. And so it's not how the model actually assigns people to the cadres. So if you have some new data and you assign them to their subpopulations, you can't just like look at the average age and the standard deviation age. You need this more complicated mathematical framework. But if you're only on the descriptive level, then oftentimes this cohort-specific data is sufficient. So are there questions about this sketch, this framework right here? We're going to switch to like a real product example a bit, so just the proportion of people who are men. So now we're going to work with the actual paper we have and say, okay, with the results we got, what would we need to represent them and model them and understand them properly? So, okay, so in practice, there's a lot more information than just in this example, because you're going to be, so you have this very large number of potential risk factors, and then for each risk factor, you have a separate cadre model, which yields a separate set of subpopulations, and then you train a risk model on each of those subpopulations. So that's going to give you a lot of different variables and sysplots and that sort of thing. And so this is what we got for our work. And so this is, as you can see, it's a lot of different numbers and results. And so we need some way of organizing and that goes beyond a simple table. Oh, sorry, what? Oh, okay, so in this particular study, we created 3 sets of models. So models solid blood pressure, their response, solid blood pressure. So you can see, so a risk factor can only be associated with 1 of 2 or
Right, but why?
It's how they're subdividing, I think.
Like blood colors and
Yeah.
So you mean color like?
Yeah.
So that's how size of a blood. So the x-axis here is the regression coefficient. So as you go further along the x-axis in this direction, that represents a stronger association. And the y-axis has 5% confidence intervals. So the height for this, that's just because there were fewer significant risk factors for hypertension, and so the R was trying to make it the same size as stretched out.
So portion more. It's the one below it. So
there's 2 quadrants for the one below it, and there was only 1.
So
Blood cadmium was only 1 quadrant, blood lead was 2, and then the one above it is 3. So this I could fit 3 on it.
Right, in the same space. And it's an optical delusion that the second from the top on the right is, it's actually the same height as blood lead and blood cadmium.
and the very top one.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, so like this is, so well on this for a little bit longer, so we trained different levels of model complexity. And so you can either divide your population to a single quadrant, so working at population level, or 2 quadrants or 3 quadrants. And so beyond that, it would be overfitting results. And so then, so the variables that are circled in purple are ones that, for which there's only significant association on a subpopulation level. So this model and alpha y, since this is a square, it's saying that in our 3-quadrant model, one of the 3 total subpopulations had a sequencing association. And you also have variables like blood lead, where so there was we found a significant association on population level, but once you start refining your cohort, then you can have slightly stronger association. So that's most here. As like the full cohort gets smaller and smaller, you start thinking about the stronger and stronger association.
You're only sorting positive.
Yeah, so here we only consider those positive associations because they're the ones that maybe use action, or maybe probably the most interesting follow-up studies. Okay. And so that was for everything. And then even if you zoom into a single risk factor, it's still complicated. So we have think of these 2 lines as being 2 halves of a cohort table 1. So we're saying for the risk factor, you are SPO7, that's this category response variable, and then we had 2 quadrants for, and how you would use that for one of these quadrants, there was association hypertension, and that was not known in the other subpopulation. So the model picked out the set of people who had that association, and you also want to summarize what those subpopulations look like. So we see that they have fairly similar ages, mean ages, fairly similar mean eyes, and then slightly different systolic health and solid blood pressures, but where they differ most of differentness. So this our second quadrant is not visible at no, but the first quadrant that did have the significant association did have did contain this going forward. So, yeah. Yeah, so this, so you say, so the average age of people in Cadre 1 was 39.27 years, and then the standard error, standard error, not standard deviation. So the standard error tells you how much, how likely we think our estimate is wrong. So it doesn't describe the actual distribution of the variable, it describes the distribution of error. It's so you take standard deviation, I think you divide that square root of the sample size again. Is that right? Okay, yeah. Andres says it right. Yes, I've seen some papers that will give the standard error, and other papers that will give the standard deviation.
Just to find under the second cardinal, what is it?
So that's saying that Cadre 1 was only contained.
Oh, but the two is not.
Sorry, Cadre 2. Yeah. Yeah, so like we got these divisions only from the data, so there wasn't, so like if you look at it, it might say we chose to focus on women under 40, but here we're automatically selecting what people, what sets of people are different.
You have a something that can look at these basically have the female portion as the kind of the most significant factor.
That would be a good thing to have, and we don't have it.
Because then you can basically redo the analysis with just that factor.
Yeah.
As like the first play and see if that's actually, because this is predicting this factor.
So what the so if you go to the next slide though, what we see is that sometimes these summary tables can be misleading and are not completely accurate. So what we noticed before was we have very dark division on ethnicity and also on gender. But when you actually combine ethnicity and gender and look at the, so now like the two-way counts, we see that Cadre 1 is the one that had the was every man in the division, as well as women specifically Hispanics. So you don't get that degree of detail only by looking at the table ones. So you have to like look at some complicated question. And the challenge is that we don't necessarily correctly notice this automatically. So like what happened here was I had my results and I generated different plots until I saw something that explained the differences. So if you're trying to do this on like a larger scale, you would need to have some maybe more sophisticated way of discerning what's necessary. And so that's like I said, like this is just it's masking the table because it requires understanding the interaction between these two variables. So that's what I have. Just to summarize, we have this idea of cartridges, we have this full end-to-end precision analysis that we're trying to implement, and what this all goes into is a fully semantic risk analyzer. So as now the risk analyzer is a mix of hard-coded axioms and some degree of flexibility, semantic flexibility, but we want to have this be more of a fully autonomous system. And another important idea is how can we take the risk analyzer and fully integrate it with our precision modeling, so from Cartridge. This will require a full formalization of the health test ontology. We can also look at other different types of models, so something like a Cox model or just something similar like a Fisher test or that sort of thing. But so if we imagine having all these derived axioms floating around in our knowledge graph, then we want to have the system be able to take advantage of that. So, like I was saying before, when Jim was mentioning, I was like, so if you see, once you see what the model is found, you want to be able to refine the results and maybe recalculate the model under certain circumstances, and not certain things. So there's a wealth of possibilities in the derived inference, and so then the challenge is just the way from the author.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
You blew.
We've actually